Welcome back to another episode of Professional Yapper. It's your girl, Kinilwe, the Professional Yapper. Hi, hi, and another one, hi. Today, I'll be reviewing Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Just a disclaimer, this book review has a lot of spoilers, so you are warned. If you haven't read the book, you are warned. If you have, hey mate, enjoy the journey. I will not give a synopsis of the book because duh, you followed the instructions in my disclaimer and read it already. So let's dive straight into it. Have you ever watched a series or movie where once you've completed it, something starts growing in you? A little obsession. Suddenly you want to know all there is to know about it. The actors, the behind the scenes, the inspiration, and everything in between. That is how I felt with this book. For the few days after completing it, I became obsessed with not just all there is to know about the book, but the author too. I mean, come on, it is Chimamanda after all. After reading the book, I drank my hot beverage, listening to high life music from that era, and I was trying not to think because I had so much to think of. I was giving my brain some space to absorb the phenomenon that is Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This was my first read from her collection, and she did not disappoint. You know how a small thing can ruin a book for you? Could be a writing style that doesn't click, or that character that doesn't sit right. This book had none of that. Actually, it was the opposite. Every detail felt intentional. Even the imperfections added to the experience. The portrayal of characters, the complexity of themes, and the setting. And then Richard. If there is no hater of Richard, then I'm dead. Going back to the moment I finished the book and high life music was playing, it brought the pages to life. You know how when reading you start constructing a whole visual world in your mind? Chimamanda's words made that easy. Her storytelling guided my imagination. The clothes Alana wore when she was first introduced, the way Enigbo's chest hairs curled, the exact expression plastered on Ugu's face during his perverted thoughts of boobs. I would like to think I saw it all. And once I had digested, let's say 20% of it, naturally in my true obsessive form, I started watching Chimamanda's interviews. I did a deep dive into the Biafra War and whatever else I could find that will help me understand the context, understand the layers, understand why, despite everything, Richard still pissed me off. And after doing the work, I'll admit I slightly sympathize with him, but I am still his biggest hater.
Catch me outside. How about that? Huh? Catch me outside. How about that?
Olana, the naive twin. Am I right to say she was stigmatized? Watch this. Okay. Let me be serious. Olana, like all the characters, displayed growth throughout the book. She was introduced as the soft-spoken idealist woman in love. Being from wealth and comfort, she followed a man into a life of lesser than. Intelligent and well-educated, she still chose to leave her life of comfort to be in Odenigbo's shadow. Hold on.
Hold on. I'm not going to say that. Hold on.
It is necessarily not a bad thing. Like I said, she is a believer of love. It is who she is. She represents the traditional versus modern woman. Those women who want to be wives. Women who want the traditional life in this modern world. She could have chosen a suitor who would continue providing the comfort she is used to, i.e., the chief or Muhammad, but she knew what she wanted. I can give it to her though for understanding early on that she will be in the shadow of Odenigbo. Hell, during those times, and unfortunately in some instances of 2025 too, no matter how educated you are, a husband is still a symbol of social capital. Please go watch this video to understand the concept of social capital and why I related to Olana. Another thing I've picked up in the book is the woman's worth that is tied to having children. Societal expectations of motherhood and fertility are definitely a theme in this book. As small as it may be, it was a theme that developed into something bigger at the end. The fact that Olana doesn't have a biological child makes her vulnerable to judgment, especially from people like Mama, Odenigbo's mother, who never liked her. And what other better way to say fuck you to mother than raising the child even she did not want? That was her pinnacle moment of maturity. She might have realized she is barren and chose to take care of baby. But, hear my chat. Her taking in baby was not for the sake of Odenigbo, but for her selfish maternal longing. It is often seen in marriages as years go by without producing a child. Then boom, there is a ton of events where babies start popping out. That could have been the case with Olana and Odenigbo. There is an instance in the book where she briefly discusses having children with Odenigbo and Kainene. This is the subtle indication of her longing to be a mother. As much as she was a progressive woman, her strength was understanding she is a woman. Educated or not, her natural instinct was still present. Despite the circumstances in which baby was conceived, she doesn't resist her nurturing instinct. This is seen when she takes in baby and later baby became hers fully. She tells Kainene, she is my child. I love that for her. Stigmatized or not, Alana embraced her femininity without seeing it as a weakness. Baby was fulfilling her selfish desire to be a mother, and even with the circumstances, she did it well. Even in the midst of tragedy, kudos to her for choosing baby over everything. And at the end, baby became her anchor. Moving on to the next character, Kainen. You know, when I think of Kainen, I think of Maxine Shaw from Living Single. Yes, I know the characters do not, even in this universe, they do not meet. But they have similarities. There is an episode where Maxine's mother comes in town to visit and she's upset. The reason why I say Kainen and Maxine Shaw are similar is because there is a part of the episode where Maxine is like, the reason why my mother and I's relationship works so well is because she left me the hell alone to raise myself. And I became the woman I am because of that. And please, I'm paraphrasing, but that is how I feel with Kainen. Kainan is who we thought Odenigbo would be. My favorite character. Why, you ask? Well, of all the characters in the book, I identified with her the most. Born as a pair, raised as an individual. She was sidelined a lot, attention always on the prettier sister, but that is not what I believe built her. She was left the fuck alone to raise herself, and even though there is some resentment towards the parents, it saved her from the expectations that came with the parents' favorite. Olana needs to be needed, while Kainen doesn't. It is seen with how their father trusts her to handle his businesses. As discussed above, Olana represents feminine energy, while Kainen represents the masculine energy. We see this in how the dynamics of her relationship with Richard is, which I think he didn't deserve, my girl. She was the lead in the relationship, and it worked for them. Outside of Madhu, I get the feeling Richard was the first man she'd fully put her trust in without expecting disappointment. Clearly, the first man, being her father, disappointed her a lot while growing up. When the cheating scandal surfaced, it hurt her. Richard hurt her. And I'm kind of upset that Chimamanda didn't use the opportunity to explore how a woman like Kanene, who is always seen to have a tough exterior, break. It would have humanized her. And no, please don't think I'm saying pain humanizes, but it lost her ability to react. What I mean by that is she was not given the liberty to hurt, to be in her anger. Olena was permitted to cheat back, but like always, she was sidelined to being the stronger sister. She was not given the liberty to fully express her hurt. We are given snips such as her eyes were sullen and raw the morning after the confession while sitting on the kitchen table reading the newspaper. Her carrying on like Richard didn't just rip her heart out is to show she is not used to given a platform to express herself freely, and in turn an emotional barrier was built. Another issue I believe deeply hurt her was not because Richard cheated, but because it was with her sister, man. The one person whom she's always been in her shadow. There is a sense, I get the sense that she would have been okay if it was any other woman but her sister. Now coming to Kainen during the war. She stepped up, and I mean stepped up.
You're not getting it. It's not clocking to you. It's not clocking to you that I'm standing on business, is it?
She assumed the role of leader and used her connections to make sure the people in the refugee camp had a supply of food and other sustenance. Her strategic persona prolonged the lives of the refugees and of her sister's family. Let's be honest, if it wasn't for her, a couple of occasions baby could have died. A couple of occasions Olanam was able to trade some things for others. Yeah, she's the boss. She's the boss lady. Anyway, Kainen is the unsung revolutionary, the realist, the backbone, the quiet flame. She represents a different kind of strength, self-contained, unsentimental, but deeply committed. Oh, she was committed. She is what liberation actually requires, hence her character analysis began as it did. She is who I thought Odenigbo would be, and unfortunately, her disappearance at the end of the book haunted me. Still haunts me. Sad, really sad. It represents a very sad but true reality. Her disappearance represents those who were never found after the war, the ones whose families buried empty caskets. She represents the lost ones. I had big expectations in the role he would play in the war. I mean, he did sell himself. Odenigbo, loud, very loud, revolutionary intellectual, a Pan-African, but also a typical African man, even in this day and age of 2025. Educated, yes, but rooted in his cultural misogyny, the kind we witness on a daily basis from African men. I think it was mentioned in this interview how performative Odenigbo is. He portrayed himself as this forward-thinking, liberal man, but in private, he is merely a man who can't even cook for himself. Odenigbo represents everything wrong with the facade of intellectual men. And let me give you an example. Women's intellect often gives space for growth, healing, and comfortable conversations, but in the same breath, it gives solutions. It gives space for evolution, for the survival of humans as a whole. That is not the case with intellect of men, especially in characters like Odenigbo. It is quite selfish. Only I will evolve. You are merely an object to get me there. But that is definitely my personal opinion. Please. And let me explain myself. Odenigbo is the tragic contradiction of the African intellectual elite. A man who had the language for liberation but lacked the emotional depth to liberate himself or protect the people he loved. Now that I think of it, Odenigbo is the villain of the story because Olana literally uprooted her life to be with this man, left the comfort of her parents' home, swallowed the judgment and disappointment that came with choosing love over status. And for what? A man who cheats, lies? Ugh, man, come on. A man who lets his mother drag this woman through the mud like she's some side dish he brought home from a bar, man. Where were the boundaries? Where was the spine? Like, this man could have set so many boundaries to defend his love. And he had so many opportunities, but he didn't. And the situation with Amala wouldn't have happened if he had set those said boundaries. Odenigbo should have set the tone from day one, like I said, gently but firmly, with the respect due to his mother, so that Olana was not to be disrespected, not by anyone, especially not by the one woman he knew had never accepted her. And then there's Amala. The lack of accountability is honestly wild here. Not once does he really sit with the consequences of his actions. Not really reckoning, just it was a mistake. End of the story. Meanwhile, when Olana, in the moment of grief and rage, sleeps with Richard, she carries the guilt like a boulder on her back. Her betrayal becomes a sin. His betrayal? An unfortunate incident, a misstep, a man being a man. Oh, the double standard was so loud. And I don't like how Olana's aunt encouraged, okay, but then the generation scrapped that. It exposed Onigbo's own fragility. The man wants to fight imperialism, shake up the political order, lead philosophical revolutions over wine and pepper soup. But he can't handle a woman's agency. He wants a strong intellectual partner, but only if her strength doesn't threaten his ego. Yes. That kind of love is not revolutionary. is just convenient. And that's a tragedy. Olana deserved the world, and he gave us crumbs. The next character, Chiamaka, or Baby, as she is referred throughout the book. She is a result of Odenigbo's drunken night with Amala. But fortunately, Baby is the thing that Olana needed. She became Olana's anchor, her will to continue. Olana is a great believer of love, like I said before, and when that belief of romantic love was threatened, Baby became the replacement. She redirected her love wholeheartedly to Baby, and I am thankful Baby became that for her. Baby needed a mother, and Olana needed an outlet for her love. Bringing it back to the book, most importantly, in the dark of war, I believe Baby represented innocence. I would like to believe Chimamanda wanted to bring some sort of light in dark. We see this also with the scene of the wedding. But Baby's presence in the book was the innocence that we needed, was the hope that everything will be okay. Her being too young to understand what was going on around her, her age allowed for the bliss she was experiencing. Her age literally allowed her for the say, ignorance is bliss. Her ability to make friends everywhere they moved, her playfulness with Ugu, and her curious spirit to want to explore is exactly the innocence we needed. She is the embodiment of the kids are gonna be alright.
In this way, and as urban poet Kendrick Lamar says, we're gonna be right, we're gonna be all right.
For this last part of the book review, I'll be analyzing Ugu, my man. At the beginning of the book, we are introduced to Ugu, an uneducated village boy who gets employed by Odinekbo, or as Ugu affectionately calls him, Master. And in my mind, as I was reading, I kept on imagining him pronouncing it Master, Master. I don't know why. Okay, sorry, I'm digressing. I emphasize uneducated because by the time the story ends, there's a stark contrast in who he has become, not just in knowledge, but in how he sees the world, how he processes pain, and how he carries memory. Ugu grows before our eyes, physically, mentally, emotionally, and even politically. The same boy who once mispronounced Sute and had childish and very perverted thoughts about breasts ends up being the one who holds the entire war in his memory. He becomes the one who tells the story, and rightfully so. His growth is honestly one of the most powerful parts of the book, and the climax of that growth is the book he eventually writes. The world was silent when we died. I love how Richard, still my enemy, managed to conjure up that title, but the way in which Ugu managed to relate it to his experience fit perfectly. Perfectly. This is the same boy who started off full of curiosity and mischief, whose sharp tongue was kept in check by tradition and power dynamics. He ends up becoming the quiet but solid protector of Olana and Baby. And that, again, as I previously said, is how I wished Odinigbo was. He arrives in Odinigbo's house with wide-eyed wonder, trying to wrap his head around big English words, wine-drinking professors, and fancy gas stoves. He is like many of us once were, a sponge, ready to learn, eager to prove himself, and he does. He honestly does. He goes far and beyond my expectations. During the war, Ugu rises beyond the role of a houseboy. But what I appreciate about Chimamanda is how she doesn't make his growth neat or perfect. It is not linear. She doesn't allow us to glorify him. His progress is so jagged, messy, it is very human, and that becomes painfully clear during the bar scene. The bar scene ruined Ugu for me. I'm not gonna lie. It completely broke the image I had built of him in my head. He had a choice. He really did. A very clear one. And for the moment, it really felt like he was going to make the right one, the right choice. I was rooting for him to be different, to show that he wasn't just like the rest. But he wasn't strong enough. His ego didn't allow it. The so called bro code didn't allow it. His failure was deeply, deeply disappointing. The moment destroyed the wholesome image he'd been building throughout the book. But maybe that was Chimamanda's point. Maybe. To remind us that these characters, even the ones we care for, are flawed. That war can distort even the best parts of a person. I will never justify Ugu's actions. I cannot forgive him. I honestly can't. But I won't pretend it didn't happen either. The turning point for me was when he found out what had happened to his sister. That's when the guilt finally landed. Chimamanda wrote that moment beautifully and painfully. It speaks to something I've observed in real life, that many men only become emotionally invested after something horrific happens to someone close to them. Until then, it's all a bit abstract. Peer pressure, just jokes. I see what they tweet. Okay, this was before Elon Musk took it and made that a horrible platform. I'm digressing again. But the minute it's your sister, your cousin, your child, it becomes very real for them. They don't have that sense of, even if it's a stranger, let me feel the empathy for them. You get me? Ugu's journey is one of growth, yes, but also one of deep reckoning. He carries the guilt with him, and that's exactly why he had to be the one that writes the book, not Richard, not Odenigbo, Ugu. Because he lived it, it broke him. Slightly healed, but he remembered. Ugu is not perfect, but he is real. And in a story like Half of a Yellow Sun, that's what makes him unforgettable. To conclude this video with my final thoughts, firstly, this book, Half of a Yellow Sun, was my first from Chimamanda, and it blew my mind. Her writing style, the way she delivers, the way she can put fiction into a factual history. She puts emotion to history. And for that, I'm thankful for myself reading this book. And hopefully in the future, I will read more of her works. Secondly, this is a learning curve. So I know the cartoon or the animation is a bit cringe, but I promise I'm getting better. I'm learning from my mistakes. With that being said, I would like to turn this into a series. So there are books that I've already read, and I want to do similar stuff with the books, a similar video. So also, I've realized that reading is a very, very expensive hobby to have. So me being the genius that I am, I went and did a library card using government resources, taxpayer and all. So yeah, With the library card, I have access to more books. So hopefully I won't take as long as I did with this one in creating the next video. So please be patient with me. Ladies and gents, thank you for watching my video. It is a great honor to have analyzed this book the way I have, and for you to actually you know. Cheers, mate.